All right, this will be a brief tutorial in SolidWorks, followed by a little tutorial on how to set up a scene in Keyshot, all directed towards the midterm and building concepts for materials and methods. So, a brief introduction of SolidWorks. SolidWorks is a parametric program, which means that any commands you apply to build a 3D model, you can edit later. So this is sort of what the work area looks like. It's important to be aware of these planes. This is where you create sketches like drawings. It's a similar interface to Adobe Illustrator using vector lines that you can then apply 3D commands to. So let's look at how to build a basic concept like a photo frame. So I'm going to select the front plane, and then in my window up here I'm going to click on Sketch, and now I'm in sketch mode. I can select a triangle or any shape from up here. I can choose a shape that looks about the size of a picture frame. If I select and hold down Control, all these lines, I can apply an offset to them. This might give me sort of a framed look. Like I said, you can always drag and change. It is parametric, so I can take a proportion about 4:6. I can click on features here and apply a three-dimensional extrude to this to make it look like a photo frame. To add a backing, it's a similar process. I can select the same plane, go back to the sketch tab, enter sketch mode. I can actually copy the sketch from this previous one by clicking this drop down arrow, making it appear, selecting the sketch, and clicking on this command here, convert entities. Now you'll notice it copied both sketches. I don't want this one on the inside, so again I can just sort of select all of these. I can also click drag to select. If I go drag right to left, it will select anything it crosses over. I can add to the selection by holding Control and left clicking and hit delete. If I now apply a similar extrusion command, I can change the direction by clicking this icon and give a bit of thickness to our photo frame. You'll notice this box here says merge result. That means that it will merge this new feature with this one. In this case, I actually don't want to do that. I'm sorry if this is maybe a bit confusing, but what this does is I have two separate bodies now. So when I bring them into Keyshot, there'll be two separate layers. That means that this can then have a photograph applied to it. I can duplicate this multiple times for the concepts by clicking on linear pattern. Maybe I want to pattern bodies here, not features. And again, here are two separate elements, two separate layers in Keyshot. I can select both. It wants a direction up here, so I can select like a horizontal line, and that's how it moves the copies in that line. You can see there's a lot of overlap. I can change this value here to spread out the images to the photo frames to what I might want them to be. You can change the number of photo frames for your concept. Maybe you want 4, maybe you want 12. When I click the check mark, you can see it just duplicates all of those different elements. Now, like I said, it is a parametric program, so I can actually change the concept. I might first save this one. So I can save it as photo frames. Maybe let's say I want another concept that is shadow boxes or 12 boxes for maybe storing objects instead of photos. I can change, right click on this and edit it. It's this icon up here, edit feature. And because it's parametric, I can go back and edit this value and make it more like a shadow box. And now if I change this, you'll notice that it changes all the concepts. And that's simply what I did to build these different concepts that I now have here in Keyshot. So when you set up a scene in Keyshot, it can be helpful to add context. My vision of this is these are maybe like boxes that live on the wall, might be mounted there. Right now you can see in the default Keyshot scene, it looks like they're sitting on the floor. To import files to Keyshot, you go to File, Import, and browse to whatever you just built and click on Open. I typically just leave these at their default and click on Import. And you can see here, this is the one I just, whoops, yeah, that we just built. But I will use these prior options. So firstly, I want to pick these up off the floor because, again, in context, my concept will be on a wall. So I can actually hold down Shift and click on this top one and this bottom one. It'll select all three. And I can go to Position and click on Move Tool. I can then drag this up, and you can see we're getting them off the ground. The shadow is disappearing. There's many different workflows. It's also possible to turn off a shadow in the environment here. You can just simply turn off ground shadows. But for context, I kind of like to have them. So what I want to do is I just want to add a wall to put these on, and that's where this cube comes from. You can get basic geometries in Keyshot by going to Edit, Add Geometry, and finding one of these options. Again, I selected cube. You can see it dropped it on the bottom. Now this isn't quite the proportion of a wall, so I can come over back here to my scene tree, scene window, and look for, or sorry, rather position. You can change the scale, so we can make it bigger. We can say snap to ground to make sure it's sitting on there. But you can see I've sort of run out of space here, so I can actually just type in a number like 1000. And that moved it up. So actually, sorry, snap to ground. The scale is what I want. So we'll type 10,000 for that. You can see it made it really tall. So I don't know, just dial in maybe a logical number in height. Maybe I also want what in width, I think is the next one. Oops, wrong one. So this is the part that maybe the distance doesn't matter. This is the one. There's basically a wall. I don't know, maybe we do want a little bit more depth to it. Again, I can hit snap to ground, and then with the move tool, I can position it to where I want. And I'm using my mouse wheel to roll in and out, left click button to tilt. I'm going to move this forward, back a bit. Again, I just want these to look like they are living on a wall. I guess they don't have to be perfectly attached. And there you go. I have a little bit of context set up. Actually, wait, let's see. It looks like I have, okay. The shadow boxes have a bit of bleed, so I'm going to move this. Actually, I was happy with the position of this concept. So I can select both this concept and cube holding Control. Right click on this and say Move, and just slide them back till maybe, let's see, the boxes look like they're floating at about the same height. Okay. All right, so here are all my different concepts. Maybe let's start with the photos. So maybe I want like a wooden photo frame. I can come over here to my like material panel. I can go down to wood and just pick one and drag it and drop it on the frame. If these are glossy photos, maybe I'll go to like plastic here and find sort of, I think like a hard, shiny white plastic. Can maybe sort of make them look like photos. Now maybe I actually want to put a photo on here. I think that would be a good idea. I can bring up a Google image search and search cheesy family photo. Perfect. I can select this first image here, save image as onto my desktop, and then I can add the image in Keyshot. So all these photos are now sort of tied together. So I can, well, let me first start by editing the material. I can select the photo and say Edit Material. I can come over here to Labels and click on the plus sign, add label texture. I can navigate to my cheesy photo, and you can see here how it places it in the middle. Now, I probably should have gotten a portrait photo. That would have made my life easier, but that's okay. I can come over here and just sort of change the size of it. So let's see what happens if I double this to 2000. Whoa, okay, too big. 200 rather. All right, perfect. Maybe a bit 300. Now you can see that it's bleeding over into this other image. And that is because these are all the same. So if I double click on this and change the color to like a red, you can say it'll change it on all of them. So if we want to unlink our images, I can right click on here and say unlink material. I can go back and maybe try and find a portrait framed family photo, save this image. Notice the file type PNG and JPEG should work. I don't know about bitmaps maybe, or I forget the one. I'm blanking on the one I'm thinking of. Web files or whatever those are. So I can double click on this material, go back to labels. I don't want this family photo. You can see when I unchecked it, it kept this one but turned this one off. I can add a new one, add label texture, grab the portrait and drop it in. And now I can sort of change the sizes. There's two ways to change sizes, scene units or DPI. DPI is sort of counterintuitive. The bigger it is, the smaller it gets. Don't ask me why. I think it tries to maintain sort of like the pixel quality without distorting it. But this one always confuses me. So there we go. We have a little bit of context. Maybe the wall, I don't know, we can search for some, let's see, is there any concrete in here? Or sort of like wallpaper. How about drywall? Is that a material? If you can't find the material you're looking for, you can go to search the web for materials. I'm blanking on how to do that. I think Cloud Library, Window Cloud Library. Sure, I'll accept. There we go. And here I can type in like drywall. Let's see if anything comes up. Oh, perfect. Wall texture. Yes. One wall texture, please. All right. Perfect. White bricks wall. I can click on. And once it is downloaded, you can find it in your Downloads tab. You can drag this over and let go to apply a sort of wall texture to these things. Now, or whatever texture it is you might want. Now, in order to change the lighting of our scene, so we can zoom in and sort of take a camera view we might want. If I go over here to environments, we can rotate our environment by dragging this or holding Control and left mouse dragging. But there's also standard environments here. I'm typically a fan of one of these panel ones under, I think, Studio. Yeah, so either these like 2-panel or 3-panel, any of these 4, I'm a fan of. We can just drag this over here and sort of rotate it till we get sort of a good angle on our scene. Now, my idea for this concept, it was 12 photo frames for the 12 months, so sort of like memories over a year. So in all seriousness, it would probably make more sense to, change these photos to, consistent scenes. Maybe it could be sketches that you could put in here, but whatever it is to convey your story. I'm just using this here for an example. So I'm ready to render my different concepts. I can click on the Render tab here. And these are just the different settings, resolution. We don't want it to be too, too small and pixelated. So I find maybe like 2,000 pixels, something like this might make sense. You can call it whatever you wish. This is where it will place the render. So I can click on the folder. I'll just select my desktop for now so I can find it. And yeah, once you're ready, you can hit render or you can hit add to queue. I find the queue useful for setting up multiple renders, and you can walk away from your computer while it does the work for you. So here, if I want to change concepts, boxes, we probably want to put, objects in them. But again, back to material here, I can find like a wood. Again, maybe we can make this one look a little bit different, maybe like a walnut. But yeah, the thought here was that there'd be different objects in boxes. Maybe that could be done with Photoshop. We can, again, add geometry. Maybe like a sphere. I can sort of drag it up, go back here, we're selected the sphere, we can change the scale to maybe something much, much smaller. Keep it uniform. Maybe this represents a marble or something, ping pong ball from a specific memory in the year. Similar to the other concept, we'll put it in the first box here. You can choose like a glass material to apply to it. But same thing, line this up. If you want to save a sort of a camera angle, if you come over here to the camera tab, you can click the plus. And if you want to make sure you don't edit that camera angle, you can hit the lock sign. But this is helpful for spinning things around and then being able to click back on this so it snaps back to it. And that way you know your lighting will be the same for every concept. So same thing here, output. I think I forgot to mention options last time. Samples is sort of the quality of the image. 32 is actually pretty low. I'd recommend like 68, but playing with this number will change how long it'll take to spit the render out. So I'm going to click on Add Job here, and you can see here are the two different concepts ready to render in our queue. We'll prepare the last concept here. Hide the sphere. So again, these are my photos. So I actually can copy. I can, let's see, Control left click on this, I believe, and then Control right click on this. Was it Shift? Sorry, it's Shift click. Oh boy, what did I do? It can be helpful to name these things. So if you click on this, you can go to Properties here and say Wall. Okay, so it is Shift click. So I hold down Shift, left click on the photo, go back to Scene, change back to this concept, holding down Shift, right click on the photo. And you can see here it appears. I can double click on this, labels, select this and say Move Texture. I can, right now I don't have any arrows to pull on, so if I check the Translate box, I can blue arrow this over, red arrow this down. Again, changing the DPI, if I want it to be bigger, I make it smaller. Again, super confusing to me, I know. There we go. And so same thing here, I can just drag materials. These are supposed to be like metal clips, so maybe I can go here to metal, aluminum, basic, just drag some brushed aluminum onto this. Now you can see it applied it to all of these. Again, maybe I need to right click on this and say unlink material. You can shift left click here, right click here. And holding down shift and right clicking on all of those, I can quickly change these all to gloss. I can right click on this and say edit material, whoops, not graph, sorry. Right click on this one and say unlink material, right, because we don't want this to bleed. And now I can double click on this material, go back to labels, and just sort of turn this one off. You can see actually because these are all linked, it turned them off on all of them. If I right click on this one, I can say unlink material, I can double click on it and turn on the first photo. And again, to move a photo, you select it, move texture, blue arrow, red arrow, sort of positioning this in such a way. So this one again, it's scene units. You can change, I mean, I can change it by DPI as well. So here again, to make it bigger, I need to make this number smaller to get rid of those whites. And same thing, render, I can add it to the queue output, add to queue. So I'll hit render on these and then come back for the presentation. All right, so here we are in Google Slides. And you can see that the render image does not match the presentation image. So it makes your life easier if you match these two things. So this is just the default, I think, like 16:9 presentation size within Google. But we can change that by going to File and Page Setup, and I can go to Custom, and I believe I was just outputting a standard letter size from Keyshot. I can click on Apply. If you're not sure what size you are rendering in Keyshot, if you go over here to Image, you can change your preset here. I was using US letter. I don't know if it shows this in inches, but this will show you sort of your size that you've output. But now that I have it matched to US letter, I can just drag this. I can duplicate this slide and replace the image. Now, while you weren't looking, I did go ahead and output just sort of some basic sort of hero renders. This kind of shows the object on its own. This shows it in context. And again, like a photo frame's not unique. Maybe here the story is it's 12 photo frames for 1 photo a year. So you do have to apply a memory aspect or concept to this. So I went ahead and added the other concepts in here. Now we'll talk about, to me, these are not actually 3 different concepts. These 2 concepts in my book are identical. It's just in a different way for which to apply a photo. Really here, the story of a photo for a year, this is like an A and a B version of each other. For me, this is actually sort of a different take or a further iteration on this concept of like saving objects, 1 meaningful object per month for the year. To me, an object is different than a photo, so this could be a different concept, but again, I think these are all sort of in the same area. I think your presentation will be strongest if these 3 are all very different ideas. Now, it is helpful to name your concepts. This might be the hero shot of this one. This is for the feedback from Uncommon Goods. I can copy this and Control-V paste this, and just in case they're confused, they shouldn't be. You can say what they're looking at. This could also be a drawing if you don't want to render in use, but I think the more polished this is, it helps sort of convince people maybe about the idea. But I think above it looking pretty, I think Uncommon Goods is going to value the merit of the idea more than the polish of the idea, so to speak. So yeah, that's what I would have for your presentation. The last thing I'll show that's really nice about SolidWorks specifically, this is optional, but it might help them understand your concept, would be sort of like a drawing, orthographic drawing. Now, since this is the same object repeated 12 times, I'm just going to right-click on here and click on Suppress. So we're just back down to 1 box. I can say File, New, click on Drawing. And load this. It comes with sort of these templates and stuff. You can ignore that, but I can, here it's asking us what we want to put in here. I can double click on photo frames, and I can click and drag, and you can see that it gives me a front view, a top view, and a side view. And in fact, actually, even if I go diagonally, it'll give me a 3-dimensional view. So this is a really quick way to create an orthographic. You can create dimensions by clicking on this box here and selecting a line. Right now it's giving us dimensions in millimeters. If we go to the gear icon here, we can change the dimensions to inches. And if we click on this, now this is assuming that you built it to scale. This will be very useful when you're getting quotes, by the way. SolidWorks can be super handy in building a producible object. If not, you might have to be doing some of this in Illustrator, kind of calling out the sizes of the object you want. You're typically on this tab, you want to go to Other, uncheck Use Document Font, click on this, and here you can sort of change the height. Right now, funny enough, it gives it just a number value. So, if I want to double it, I can change it to 0.26. It should be double the size. You can output this as a JPEG by going File, Save as JPEG, Photo Frames. I can also save it as a part file. But now that it's a JPEG, I can duplicate this slide. I think it was of this, I can say upload from computer. I need to go to navigate to where the folder is. And there you can see my orthographic drawing. Maybe we want to drag it bigger. Or yeah, here I can crop down within here to get rid of the sort of box you don't want. This is optional. You don't need this, but it might help Uncommon Goods understand this. A drawing like this will be certainly handy for communicating with vendors and for prototyping. Certainly consider how your object might be made. That's all for now. Email any questions. You can find this example presentation in my folder in the Google Drive. Thank you.